Hey, thank you for joining the Free Mind Podcast. Today is Tuesday, December 26th, and we have our interview with Joey Mintz, co-founder and COO of Siponey Spritz Co. All right, these guys are the first whiskey cocktail in the United States and the first aged spirits cocktail. Let's take a listen to Joey's story.
I'm born and raised in New York City. Lived there the majority of my life. Went to college in Massachusetts, went to Wheaton College, then lived abroad for a while, lived in Nicaragua for almost 4 years. Went there to go surfing basically and fell in love with the country and stayed. Uh, Came back, then started a career as an actor and worked mostly as a model, really. Did a lot of international work with that as well. Lived in Chile for about a year. And then I had met Amanda, who had been working in the wine and spirits industry for about 2 decades, working for all the top suppliers. She had a really illustrious background working for some of the top craft cocktail bars when that was first popping off in New York City, like Please Don't Tell and Pegu Club. And we saw what was occurring with people putting these malt beverages into cans that were a little disingenuous at best, with claiming that they were cocktails, and people really didn't know what they were drinking. And she was always at the forefront of education in the spirits industry. And so we saw an opportunity to put something better into cans, and so Sippany was created. Brick and mortar now, we are in 15 states, but we are DTC in about 46. We are really more focused on the brick and mortar. The DTC is saturated. It's so much more pay to play than even the getting on the shelves, it seems to be, because unless you're throwing all these ad dollars, digital ad dollars all over the place, people aren't going to purchase quite so much online anymore. And we find more value and more satisfaction where people are buying it right off the shelf, and more repeat orders that way also.
And as far as right now, your ratio kind of chain to independence, are you in that?
Yeah, so we opened up Whole Foods in California and in Illinois. And so that's kind of shifted the balance a little bit more between chains to independents, but it's still pretty well balanced, about 50-50 between chain and independents.
And actually, for you mentioned there for the wholesale, or excuse me, for Whole Foods, for Whole Foods, there is that kind of your target demographic, or what is the type of retailer that you pull your best rate of sale in?
Sure. So Whole Foods is the uh, ideal demographic. We like to kind of target what we call the label readers, people who want to know what they are consuming, whether it's a liquid, whether it's food, whether it's a product they're putting on their face, whether it's a beauty product. Basically, people like to know what is going on their body or in their body. And alcohol and wine and spirits being a little bit newer to that, where you never really had to put ingredients on there, whether when it's just a vodka or a bourbon, or you would say like that it's just made from potatoes or just made from uh wheat basically. um and cans, it was always very vague, where people were putting on just artificial flavors or natural flavors at best, and you get in this kind of muddled, skittled aftertaste when you drink it. With ours, you um, really taste the whiskey, this beautiful aged rye whiskey. You get in these wonderful floral notes of the wildflower honey, and it's all brightened with the lemon juice. And so people could really taste the difference and feel the difference without that disgusting aftertaste also that you'll get from the lowest quality cans that you'll see on the shelf. And so the Whole Foods demographic, they're they're people who want to know what's in the product that they're consuming, and also are willing to pay a little bit more for that premium as well. So we're not just using kind of honey uh, made from corn syrup. We're using real wildflower honey from a farm in upstate New York near the Lake Champlain region, for example.
No, that's perfect. And what was going to drive into there and talk a little bit about your certified B program, and also for your 1% for the planet as well.
Sure. The B Corp certification is not for the faint of heart. For those who are interested in getting the certification, it took us over 2 years to go through it and get it approved. It's an auditing top to bottom of not just your business, but also your supply chain, vendors that you work with, how they operate, um, whether they pay living wages, how their employee ratio is as far as the makeup and demographics of their employees. So it's a complicated and long, arduous process, but we're really proud of it. We are the first and I believe still the only cocktail company in America that is B Corp certified.
One of the reasons I wanted you to bring it up because while it is an arduous process, I felt like you sat alone. So I'm glad you verified that for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, as to how well that resonates with consumers, whether they know it or not, we're proud of it and proud to be a member of the B Corp community. Those that are aware of what the B Corp certification status stands for, it certainly does impact their decision as far as purchasing Siponey versus a non B Corp certified spirit. 1% for the planet is a much simpler situation. All you have to do is donate a certain percentage of your revenues or profits to nonprofits, and you get certified.
Excellent, excellent. Well,
Yeah,
want to kind of focus a little bit on why you guys chose the path of whiskey. And the reason I want to ask is a lot of the canned cocktails that came out were just vodka, 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 vodka all the way through. So you guys, we just actually did a recent released, published a interview with Damn Right Cocktails, which is a organic tequila-based canned cocktail. So they're kind of in their niche. And also, I feel like you guys kind of paved another path with the whiskey. So talk a little bit about that decision versus following the rest of the path down the vodka realm.
sure. Yeah, at the time when we released, we were maybe the first, if not the first, rye whiskey in a can in America. I mean, obviously there had been already whiskey highballs in Japan in a can, uh, and it wasn't just that we wanted to be the first whiskey in a can. Amanda comes from a Scotch background, and we had actually contemplated putting the Scotch in a can, but it just was too wild of an idea and too cost prohibitive, really, of importing the Scotch and then putting it into a can. Everybody thought we were crazy to even use an aged spirit in a can. We were the first to use an aged spirit in a can as well. Um, and so we have definitely gotten a lot of love and respect from consumers who wanted to have a quality cocktail in a can and weren't a cocktail ready to go, ready to drink at that moment instead of having to mix and match and batch their own because the market was really just malt beverages at the time and vodka with some tequila cans as well when we launched. And it wasn't just that we wanted to be separate and different, but it's also the love that Amanda has for the whiskey distillation process and the terroir of whiskey that you can't really get from other spirits quite so much.
Absolutely, that's a very attractive feature. I mean, whiskey is a very complex thing, and that's actually one of the reasons I feel like some people don't go that route. So that's similar in, let's say, the beer industry where the IPAs are getting popular, but and you can easily kind of mask any imperfections to an IPA, and you can't really do that with a lager and a pilsner and things like that. So you didn't really see a lot of craft brewers producing those things because of that perfection. Because so compliments to you for using a complicated distilled spirit like that.
Thank you, and my apologies. I really should have sent you some samples in advance so you
Well,
could
I'll be hitting
be
you up
having
with
a
a plan
can.
later. Don't worry.
But it certainly is an easier conversation, an easier dialogue when somebody has the can in front of them and they're drinking it and really getting the nose from the from that rye whiskey that we have, which so many other cans like you'll smell it like yeah, like I'll just have to drink this to get it down as quick as I can. While ours you could really savor on multiple levels.
Yeah, especially like for me, I don't I consume for a sample be coming in or anything like that. But after 20 years of professionally drinking, I've thrown my hat in on that. But what I can say is I appreciate the fact you said about the nose because I live vicariously now through the nose. So I actually have said that my taste bud has gotten better because I'm not getting deflected by the alcohol. I'm strictly going in on the smell.
But
Like it's like, okay, if you can't pass my test on the smell, then I wouldn't be drinking it anyway. So, but
beautiful.
that's personally myself, my dad, I don't know. I will make fun of him a little bit on this, and I know he listens, but he did have I guess a coming of age, almost 60, a little crossover 60 birth of the beehive craze. So he has been the proud father of millions of bees, I think, at this point.
Beautiful.
So I've in the past few years been very well educated in the honey realm, and I'm sure he'll be very excited to listen to this as well. So talk a little bit about going the route of honey as opposed to any of the other approachable ways. I mean, honey is one that
Sure.
has actually I mean, obviously a natural sweetener and things like that, but I think you guys have taken it to a way of really putting an elegant taste to not taste, let me say, marketing, but really brought an elegant marketing to the honey world.
Thank you. So there are a couple things I want to just circle back on there when you talked about the nose of whiskey. So Amanda, at the time when we were creating Siponey and sampling whiskeys, she was actually pregnant, so not able to actually drink the whiskey, and so she would just um, get the full elements and full flavor profile from smelling it. And so that is a real way to know whether the whiskey is of a good quality. And any spirit
Don't
also.
realize that. A lot of people don't realize that, and that's one of the things when I went to quit, and I said, "All right, I can still enjoy it through smell." People don't realize the high percentage through the neurogastronomy that comes out of your nose. And
Exactly.
we used to do, when we do, I did a lot of trainings in beer schools and beer dinners and things like that. And one of the quickest ways to make people realize is I grab these ginger candies, which are like these just extreme, taste profiles, and I would have them all plug their noses with their fingers.
Yeah.
I would have them put the ginger in their mouth and then keep holding their nose and say, "Can you taste the ginger?" No, and then I would be like, "Okay, release it." And as soon as you
Oh.
release your nose, it is a overwhelming, sometimes like water inducing in your eyes scenario. And then people are like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, everything comes out of your nose anyway. I mean, that's where everything starts.
Wow, that's a really cool thing to have done. Um, I wonder if that works also with like hot chili peppers too.
It'll work with anything pretty much. The key is with the chili peppers and stuff, they can't smell it prior to the close off. So it's easy to do with the ginger because you move it away and it depends on what the winger is. So
Right.
there's a million other ways you can do it, but you get the idea. And I got it from probably 15 years ago from one that I went to. So
Okay.
we literally would do blind tastings,
Nice.
beer, and we would go through blind tastings and then have to determine which style of beer was just on the sip. So that was one of the biggest things they taught us from there. But I don't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to give you that anecdote there to kind of let you guys know that definitely there's people paying attention. So yeah,
Excellent. Um, as for the honey, so Amanda had come from, as I had mentioned, working at Pegu Club and Please Don't Tell, this craft cocktail scene, where she would substitute often instead of syrup, she would use honey as a sweetener for the drinks in order to minimize the effects the following day of consuming alcohol. So it's not as if it'll, you're not going to get any type of hangover at all if you're over consuming. But it certainly, if you're, being temperate in your drinking, then you're not going to have as ill of effect the following day because you're not having as much sugar. So, so that was one element to why we decided to use honey instead of sugar as a sweetener. Also, I have a horticultural background. I studied at New York Botanical Gardens, and so I really wanted to use something that was true to my background and my beliefs and my beliefs in sustainability, and wanted to use something that really you could taste the earth. And with honey, there's so many different kinds of honey depending on where the bees are sourcing their pollen. So we're using wildflower honey, which is beautiful in many different ways, but it'll also have a little bit different taste depending on the season of the harvesting of the honey, because of the wildflowers will be blooming during different times of the year, and different type of wildflowers at different points of the year. So the Symphony that you'll drink won't always have the exact same taste per production run, because the honey will always have a little bit of a different flavor profile. Um, and I think that should be normal in all products that you're consuming, because if you're consuming something that should be of the earth, something that should be natural, it shouldn't always be the same, because the earth changes, the plants kind of change of the seasons, and the bugs that are helping to pollinate, or the animals that are consuming it, or whatever you're consuming, it should be slightly different because it's a real thing of the earth and not just some chemical compound that is always going to be the same. So we met. We were dating, and we were a couple, and we were going out for a while, and um, it was something that I had always encouraged her and wondered why she didn't have her own spirits brand, because she had helped launch so many successful brands in America, whether it was relaunching Lillet, Scotch Malt Whiskey Society, Belvedere. She was the face and the national ambassador and uh, educator for all these brands to help make them national, well recognized brands. And I always wanted to know why she couldn't have a stake in that, since she was the force behind the success of these brands. Um, and we had spoken a little bit about, oh, maybe we should, have you launch a whiskey brand or something of the sort. But launching a whiskey brand is much longer, arduous process than putting something into a can. And when we saw the huge desire of consumers to have ready to drink cocktails, and that the ready to drink market at the time was really disappointing. Um, she was given, or we were given it was, she was hanging out of the pool out in Long Island, and somebody had offered her a can that they had picked up at Costco, I believe, and it was some like lemonade with vodka in it, and she like smelled it and was just completely disgusted with what was in there. And so that was really the birth of it, of like wondering why people would want to drink that when they could have something better, and being the ones to want to put something better into a can, and make it better for people and for the planet also, since most spirits companies are really not doing well by the planet. We designed it and to make it a legacy brand, something that isn't just going to pop and disappear. So many brands, you'll see that they'll do something that's a very trendy graphic design, whether it's just one bland color and huge font, and that's it, to try and fit in with what everybody else is doing. That's something that we actively decided not to do, and opted not to do. We wanted to make sure that consumers can see that there is the honeycombs, where they're really getting the flavor and the sweetness from, but we didn't want to make it seem as if the cocktails were going to be too sweet, because some people don't want to have a sugary drink, and Sippany is definitely not overly sweetened. It's just a touch of honey, we like to say. We chose to only focus on just our flagship Royale and just release that, because we're not a flavor house. We're never going to be a flavor house. You'll see so many cocktail companies out there releasing their mango, passion fruit, uh, spicy margarita mix, and it's like, okay, like cool, I guess, but then they're just releasing so many, saturating it, and none of them are good at all, and you wonder what the thought process is behind and throwing so much junk on the shelf, and they might have have a lot of exposure in the beginning, but then people drink it and they're like, this is gross, I'm not going to drink this again, and they fade away. You've seen so many, we've seen so many canned cocktail companies have a burst of success and then just quickly fade away, um, because they're releasing too many different flavors at once, or they are underselling themselves so much right out the gate. The competition in the cocktail space is so intense that we know that there are cocktail companies out there, independent cocktail companies out there, that are selling them for less than they're producing them, and it's just not a sustainable practice, really, business practice at all. They just hope to keep on raising more and more funds, or get bailed out by some larger supplier, hoping that they've sold enough cases to show that they have traction and that they should be gobbled up. But even if they to have those conversations, then the supplier is going to realize like, oh, you're the only way to make this work successfully as a profitable brand is if selling 200 million cases or whatever the case, whatever the amount is, and able to lower those cogs to such a degree that we'll have some profits, but the margins will be so terrible while we don't have that same issue on any level. And as for the graphics, I mean, I've always kind of loved the color gold and yellow. I've always found it to be really warm and inviting, and but fun and playful at the same time. Um, we really wanted to have the honeybee as the centerpiece because they're so important to our planet, and I actually think that they're friendly bug also, friendly insect. So, people always say, "Save the bees," and that's what we're doing, and that's what we want people to think of when they see our logo.
Absolutely, and quite the logo that it is. Those cans, I mean, that white with the gold and the yellow in the background, it just pops really nicely. I have it up on my monitor here, and I can see just why I would draw somebody to grab it off. Absolutely. And so, how does as far as things work for your distribution? If somebody was to go online, they can get for those different states. I see you also have a Finder app on and within your website as well, so people can go through and check it out. Me being in Pennsylvania, I was so heartened to see that I got to go down to Maryland to go get it. But we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah. It's hard to say. Pennsylvania is a control state, and so it makes it a little bit more difficult for independent brands to get in there. We we had tried a couple of times to get in with the process. I forget what the submission process is in that specific state, but of
it's very
course,
cumbersome. Yeah.
yeah, it is cumbersome. It'd be a wonderful market to get into, as I consider Pennsylvania to be part of part of our backyard, the tri-state area here in New York. But we haven't launched it there yet. Um, it's been quite the learning curve for myself, not coming from alcohol, learning how every state is its own special little creature as far as their nuances for getting a product into the market, whether they have whether it's a control state or a semi-control state, different taxes, different ABV levels for different channels they can get into. Um, and fun.
When I sit down with my clients that I could do this program, we kind of do consulting, getting them into wholesale. So let's say they're a single operation or just e-commerce, and they had to get through the philosophies and the psychology of wholesale and understanding the different types of ways that you have to go to strategy when you're not standing there. Helping people understand what your product is. You have to make sure it tells the right story. You have, your little mini bill, your 12-ounce billboard is what I tell people, and that's what you have, and you got to rely on that. On the flip side, it's one of those things where in Pennsylvania and control states, a lot of times when you're launching brands and going out, we have to do different strategy sessions for each state, and it's exactly that. And even to the extent of let's take like a North Carolina or something like that from a distribution standpoint, it's not a control state, but it is a control state in the sense that majority of the sales are done in chain. So it's like, okay, I can
Yeah,
go with any distributor I want, but I have to get into corporation with a chain, which is thus then similar, sometimes just as cumbersome as a process as getting into the state in the first place. So
of
I don't
course.
complain on chains at all. They're fantastic for volume and everything like that. It's just one of those things that my point is, as you look through everything, it's not everything. The entire country is built into this every unique little pod, and every market is exactly different, and the niches that go along with it. And you think about years ago, it wasn't like that. It wasn't. And then in 10, 20 years ago, it was just you could shotgun a brand across the country and make sales all day long. The old stack 'em high, watch 'em fly phrase they used to use in distribution. But now it's very niche, and one of the things is that to complement brands like yours is people that go through and understand it and don't look at it as a deterrent. And it's not a challenge; it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to market your brand a million different ways and not be overwhelmed by that because you're respecting the end consumer and how they want to receive your brand.
Correct. Yeah. No, that's a great breakdown and great description of the three-tier system. A much more complimentary breakdown of the three-tier system than I would ever give it myself.
I find most of the time that I give the balanced approach, but that's on both sides of it. I'm
No.
the rope in the tug of war most of the time, and I proudly stand there. So
Um, yeah, so there are definitely those national authorizations that we have seeked out and have received from large chains, but also have decided not to open up just because of the difficulties in getting into certain states, and also just not having the bandwidth to be successful in those states, because we just don't have the marketing reach to be able to be in every single state at this time of our business life cycle.
Yeah, those it doesn't matter what brand you are, the days where even if it's just, hiring somebody to remotely make phone calls or emails to one state, you as a brand, you cannot your distributors now are so overwhelmed that they can only distribute. I mean, that's really all they can do, and that's the only value they can bring. That there
Yeah,
were
but
times where, 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago, they could build a brand, market the brand, build a community, and do all those things, but they're so overwhelmed with the saturation of SKUs, that's just where it is. And it
yeah,
puts a lot of responsibility back on the supplier partners like yourselves and everybody else. And the fact that you all embrace that and see and really see the value of understanding the differences in it.
yeah. No, they've become a fulfillment, um, basically.
And
Uh,
honestly, for most of them, it's not by choice. It's just the way that the industry pushed it. I mean, there's
yeah,
you look at the straight logistics, and the more SKUs you do, the more the cogs, the less efficient you are. So you have to put everything where you keep the lights on. So I
of
mean, I'm
course.
not speaking from somebody that was in that role. My job was strictly creating communities and building brands and everything like that. And shortly after that, I left to do this working with brands directly because I realized the shift that was happening in the industry and realizing there's a lot of brands that don't know how to tell their story and they don't know how to market themselves and they need that extra support. So
Cool. Yeah, that's a wonderful realization on your part, and I'm sure it was a fun career shift also.
yeah, it was fun shifting to remote in 2017 when everybody thought it was crazy.
Oh, ahead of the curve,
I
ahead of the
was I
curve
was
there.
I was 3 to 4 years ahead of it. I persevered through and made it where it
Lovely.
became common knowledge. But these yeah, working remotely around the country was always it's been I call myself an old soul in this world now. So, but excellent. But hey, Joey, I won't take up any more of your time. I really appreciate you reaching out. I appreciate you taking the time with this.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me on. For those listeners who are interested, it's www.siponey.com, Siponey.com. And I gotta send you some samples.
I'll send
So
you an email right after
please,
this,
please give
and
me your address,
information
and
on
I'll get some over your way.
absolutely. Hey, everybody, make sure you check it out, www.siponey.com. Born in New York City. Hey, thanks again, Joey. You have a great
All
day.
right. Thank you. You too.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. This podcast is sponsored by the Free Mind Group, your food and beverage brand, manufacturer, co-packer, distributor, retailer, or sales rep, and you need help in sales and marketing, www.thefreemindgroup.com. Distributor relationship management, social media marketing, PPC ads, landing pages, everything you need for lead generation, conversion, and growing your business. Have a great day, everybody. See you on Thursday.